A pandemic, months of racial justice protests, and devastating fires haven't stopped TriMet's buses and trains from running. But where does the transit agency go from here? I'm Andrew Thien, and this is Beat Check with you, Oregonian. Up next, a conversation with TriMet General Manager Doug Kelsey about this challenging year, how it's affected his agency and staff, the future of public transit, and why he says TriMet needs another federal stimulus infusion. We talked about whether TriMet's future is with buses or light rail, why Vancouver, British Columbia has a greater share of transit riders, and much more. Here's our conversation. Doug Kelsey, thanks so much for taking time to talk to me today.
Good morning.
What is your mood like right now? You're leading this, very important transit agency through first a pandemic and now wildfires here. We're talking in late September, but it's been I would imagine, a pretty challenging year to be in charge of TriMet.
It really has. We all go through different experiences in our lives, and I've done multiple Olympic Games, and this is right up there. I got to tell you, it's when you start to look at COVID, the impacts on the economy, riots, protests, the fires we've all gone through. It's been a real tumultuous time for. I'm not worried about me. I'm more worried about my employees and our team, and they've been absolutely up to the challenge. But I think we all know it takes a toll. But we're adaptable human beings, and we will get through this, and we are getting through it, as we're seeing. It doesn't make it easy.
Yeah, a lot of folks have the luxury, I guess, of being able to work remotely. But when you're, operating the bus, both you and I ride the Line 35, right? You can't.
Yeah, we do.
You can't just sit at home or work from your kitchen.
Yeah, they have a mobile office, but it's not just our bus operators. And their heroism is amazing. We are an essential service, Andrew, and we need to get people who are doctors and nurses and cleaners to do their essential service. And so, we have to be up to that task, and our operators are doing an amazing job. Our cleaners our mechanics. We often forget about all the people who are out there doing safety and security, as well as also repairing tracks and signals. So there's a whole spectrum of people that are just really taking the challenge here, and it is absolutely not easy. And we're so grateful. We have so many great people.
Do you get a sense of what the mood is like from those essential workers, be it, the folks who are engineers keeping everything running, or the operators? Because we are, more than 6 months into a very challenging year.
I think it does take a toll. And we also can't forget all the people that they go home to. This doesn't just stop at work. And so it's been a challenge on morale. It's been a challenge on getting up every day. I try and get up every day and put my work boots on every day too. It's been long hours for every one of us playing different roles. The courage, the heroism of everybody getting up every day when they're tired, and taking another shift is to be applauded. It's not easy, but it's what we do, and the results show that the team is really good at it.
Now, we're talking, like I said, in late September, but the union workforce that makes TriMet go is operating on a contract that, has been extended right from last November. Does that add to some of the tension, do you think, in terms of, not only is it a pandemic and the wildfires and everything else, but there's also a labor disagreement?
Yeah, I think, I'm always optimistic, and through labor negotiations, there are a lot of challenges and tensions that come at the table, not just at TriMet's collective agreements, but everywhere. So yes, you could put that into the mix as well, for some people. And so particularly you overlay the economy. These are challenging times, all combined together. It's you kind of take a breath when you take each one and list it out. But then if you put them all together, yeah, it adds to the mix, and it impacts everybody differently.
When was the last time you were on a bus or train?
Last week.
What's the experience like? Because I am one of those folks who I'm not going to an office, and so I'm not transiting anywhere. I mean, tell people what it's like riding a bus or train right now.
Well, I think if you look at our ridership, the ridership is way down. I think people are minding their business. They're really doing a good job creating their space. And not only was on taking transit, frankly, last Friday, I was, we did a large project, Andrew, on the Steel Bridge recently for about a
Mm-hmm.
month. And I came out and was a ride guide with many others. I did about 5 shifts, and people's demeanor was pretty good. The ridership is significantly down, and so that allows for more spacing. But the general mood is reasonable, and people are going about their business. So we are seeing a slight uptick in ridership currently, but it's still pretty fragile. But there's a lot of space out there on those buses and trains.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about ridership because, right before this pandemic hit, it seemed like maybe TriMet was starting to turn a corner a little bit on getting ridership to come back a little bit, thanks to some of the service enhancements and added frequency and whatnot from the 2017 state legislative package. Can you talk a little bit about what gains you were seeing? And it's got to be a little bit frustrating to have this happen right as that was potentially poised to see, a little bit more people riding buses and rails.
Yeah, well, contrary to some of the historic myths that were out there that ridership has been down, in fact, pre-COVID, ridership has been up by, I can't remember the exact number of months in a row, but it's like 6 plus. So yes, the turnaround was coming, and that's attributed to a number of things. We've been looking to speed the system up. We're looking to be more reliable, and we've gone from 75% on-time performance in terms of meeting the schedule to in the 90s now. So there's some changes we've had to make,
Mm-hmm.
but there's it's frustrating. But this is also the market conditions we face, whether they're controlled or not, and we have to make sure we're doing everything we can to make sure when the riders or our customers are ready, that we're ready. So yeah, we were putting more service out on the street. We are working on the Division Transit project for $175 million. That's still going on. We're working on the Red Line extension, which would be new cars going out to Fairplex, double tracking to the airport. That's about $206 million. So there's a lot of things we've still got in the pipeline that are going to help us. But there's also, because of the health issue we are all facing, we've got to make sure that people trust us. And so that's one of the reasons we really took a bold move, probably the first in the United States, to actually put and commit to putting masks on the system for all of our rail and buses, as well as hand sanitizers. And this is in addition to all the cleaners trying to get to every 4 hours as best we can, depending on how schedules run. So if people don't feel they can trust us or don't feel safe, then there's a high probability they're going to be less willing to come. So we've got to take care of those things. And then as we add service back, and it will come back. I'm very optimistic it will come back. It's going to take some time, but we've got to be ready to do our part first. So I think some of the ridership is, you and I are just talked about, are a lot more people working from home.
Right.
And so some of those folks may not be 5 days a week going forward. They may be 2 or 3. But there also may be, with the economy and such, there may be people who had the privilege and the luxury of taking their car who may go, you know what, I'm going to take transit now. So I think there's new markets that we're going to have to reposition ourselves to, while some make changes like working from home, when we may see less of those in the short term. So I'm trying to look at the short, medium, and longer term. And things like e-bikes, instead of people talk about the last mile, I think e-bikes are an amazing addition to healthy ways of getting around. So I think we'll be looking at the last miles, plural. So the range of how you can feed into the network will actually, I think, is going to grow over time really nicely. So there are changes in the markets that we're going to have to adapt and modernize. We're looking, for example, as a headset tour, using transit to allow people to use it as an educational tool. So if you're taking the Orange Line, for say, and on your left-hand side is the submarine. On a clear day, you can see Mount Hood, and use it as an educational tool and a tourist tool on non-peak times when we have ridership capacity available. So things like that we're looking at in addition to loyalty programs.
Yeah. I'm curious, Doug. I've heard you talk in the last couple of years a lot about, kind of studying where the ridership went and whether it was, whether it's just people moving to town and driving, or people taking, ride-hailing services like Uber and Lyft more, or what have you. But I'm wondering if you go back to, I don't, if you look at ridership figures from 2005, more people in the metro area were riding buses and trains then than they were kind of in 2018. Why is that? How do you explain that, kind of eroding over time?
Yeah, as you know, I wasn't here in 2005, but
Right.
or through the recession 2008. What I can say is I look at what I see this region and this I'll call mobility marketplace now.
Hmm.
I can't go back in time, but I can compare to we are to where other regions in the world that I've had the privilege of working around, and we have about 4% transit market share for the private sector, or modal share. What that means for your listeners are, of all the trips in the region, about 4% are on transit, max bus, etc. And so I think we have a lot of unfinished business here. We still have capacity on our rail and bus networks, in addition to adding new capacity post COVID. But I also think we have to change policies. This region needs to start to tilt the playing field to take advantage of the really important urban growth boundary that was put in place here many years ago, to have queue jumper lanes. So if a bus pulls up next to a line of cars, the bus goes first.
Right.
In many cultures of the world. So we've got to start tilting the playing field to give advantage to healthy forms of living and mobility. We need to take advantage of transit-oriented development. People are, real estate prices have gone up. Real estate interest rates have been at some of the historic lows. So a lot of people have moved outside high real estate places or can't afford them at all. So that's where I think transit-oriented development is a recalibrator of higher real estate prices right next to transit. And I'm working on one right now with our team on the Hollywood Transit Center, you may be aware. So
Hmm.
instead of having a piece of land, a bus comes in, well, why don't we consider selling the land, putting 6-7 stories on there, and those are actually, the crime goes way down, our costs get taken out of the business, and those people become long-term riders that may not need a car. So I think there's a whole lot of those kind of things we've got to change in the policy side, and we also need to come up with more products. The price of cars, the barriers to entry to owning a car through the largest stock market increase in history that we've been going through, is the barriers to owning a car are pretty low, and so and fuel prices have now gotten low. So I think comparatively, those have been some of the challenges. So when you put them all together, it's a complex web of we've got to rewire how we do what we do and increase our frequency on our services. That's the number one request we get from our customers in our surveys, is in fact want more service, want more of it, and more frequency. They like what we're doing, but they want more of it.
So do you think the whole wheel and spoke system of transit, where people coming into downtown from the suburbs, is that still a reality?
When I look at cities like London, Singapore, Copenhagen, and others, you cannot have it. But part of what we're going through is a region, and we're a mid-sized region, Dallas or Denver ourselves. Right. We're not New York or other ones or Paris who've had major investments underground, big fast trains and buses. So I think we're going through changes right now where it's going to be more like the old, I'm aging myself by saying this, like pickup sticks. People aren't just, they aren't just having to work in the central business district anymore. They may actually travel. I know examples where people live in Troutdale and actually work out in Hillsborough. So I think the travel patterns are changing, and technology's got a part of that. But to say you don't need a central business district model only, I think you need that, and you need the suburban mix. Most cities, from my own experience, Andrew, have actually done a pretty good job in the central business district. You can walk, you can cycle, you're in close proximity because that's where a lot of things intersect.
Right.
The challenge is when the further out you get, the wider the gap on the spokes, if you will, on your tire of the region. And as people move on those outside patterns, that's where I think further investment is going to be needed, and further policy changes where we can get ahead of it rather than it's all densified and it's too late and too expensive to make those changes.
I know you weren't here during these times, but I covered the city of Hillsborough, 8 years ago, and there's a discussion then about having more north-south routes to connect to South Hillsborough, the future development there, and Cornelius Pass, and some of the Intel campuses, and it's been almost a decade, and we haven't seen those level of investments.
Yeah, it's always follow the money, right? So through the great wisdom of House Bill 2017 that you referenced earlier on, it became approximately pre-COVID a $50 to $55 million projection of expanded service and programs. So to give us a bit of a kickstart, that's not the end. That because the region, I think, has to get personally with these policy changes plus investments, has to get to double-digit modal share. I think it's very important.
We're at 4% right now.
I think it's like 4.1%, Andrew, but let's call it 4% for this conversation. Okay. So the base here is really just excellent. And the four mothers and fathers before us have done a really nice job laying this network out, but we're not finished yet. And then we have to overlay not just capital, rebar, and investments. We have to overlay programs and services like our hop card, so people can plan, book, pay, and minimize the I call frictions of getting around on public transit, and connect from transit to maybe an e-bike to a scooter and different combinations of things of healthy living. And if we can network all that and integrate that together, then they can see the net cost, the net travel time, and then they become in control. So that's one of the reasons for me, the mindset for this region has to move from a transit mindset to a mobility mindset. Transit can't solve everybody's problems. So it's part of the solution, but it's not the solution.
Let's take a break and come back and talk a little bit more with Doug Kelsey, General Manager of TriMet. Doug, there's a very significant ballot measure coming up in November, and I know you can't specifically talk about the measure itself, but there's a 11-mile light rail extension to Bridgeport Village that is kind of the centerpiece of this project. And I know you weren't around when this is on the books, but this project has been on the books for a long time. Why is this something that TriMet has looked to for really decades at this point? Why has it been highlighted as something that is worth pursuing?
Well, yeah, I as you mentioned up front, I said I think just for your listeners, since the ballot has been dropped, I'm legally not in a position to advocate for or against this. So as a public servant, if you will. So now they're in this ballot, I have to be very careful. It's, by 2035, there's going to be 70,000 people are projected to be there in this area where this line is. This is about 10% of the region's populations, Andrew. So it's only logical that you lay the facts out that there would be significant policy interest in like the 2040 plan, and your listeners can find this, getmoving2020.org for all those details that get into the underpinnings of it. But the facts of the matter are this is a growing part of the region.
Okay, so what happens if voters don't approve the Get Moving package, the transportation package that includes billions for the light rail line?
Yeah, well, I think one of the other facts I think is important in the T2020 ballot is $975 million allocated to this. Mm-hmm. So if November 4th comes up, and it will, if you've indicated and is not successful, the project will not advance. It will not move forward. And the next step after that is we'll have to take a pause and then consult with all the partners who've been at the table all this way, and determine what are the appropriate next steps. But if it is unsuccessful, it will not advance.
When you talked about a short-term, medium-term, long-term plan for the agency, I guess given kind of the flexibility that you talked about and people desire so much in their daily lives, is TriMet's long-term future tied to buses or to light rail?
Well, I think it's each one solves a different problem. I learned a long time ago from one of my mentors. Buses are kind of like the army. They're very nimble and flexible. It can get out of trouble. The light rail is like the Navy or the big aircraft carriers. It takes a lot of investment, a lot of capital to move it around. But they perform fundamentally and complementary different kinds of services that they feed into each other. If you're in the private sector, you would never fly a Boeing 747 airplane when a Dash 8 or 737 can do the trick.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have to look at what problem are we trying to solve, short, medium, and the more the capital, the more the permanent the infrastructure is, then you want to look at that long-term ridership capability. And so different tools of technology solve different problems. And even within bus or rail, you have different growth. You have smaller shuttle buses, you have 30-foot buses, we have 40-foot buses, we have something called the accordions, the articulated buses.
Right.
And then you go to the same thing with rail. Commuter rail is different than light rail. I ran the largest automated light rail system in the world in Vancouver, British Columbia. And that capacity can handle a lot more than light rail, but it's less than subway. So each one is a stair step as to what problem you're trying to solve, or problems. Usually there's more than one. It's complex. And I think that's part of what we're looking at is making sure we look at whether we look at the I-5 bridge, what kind of technology is needed over an I-5 bridge, bus or train, and all the emotions that went with that years ago. So I'm agnostic personally to technology generally. At some point, you'll lock into some general themes because it gets so costly to carry so many different types of vehicle types.
You mentioned your former employer up in Vancouver, BC, at TransLink. Now that you've been away from there for 5 years now, right?
Yeah, about 5 years, coming up on 5.
What do you think they do well? Because their mode split up there is significantly higher for transit than down here in the Portland metro area.
Well, there's not right or wrong. These are different choices, and there's different cultures in each. Part of the conversation in this region, i.e. the 2040 plan, is laying out what are the policy changes that need to happen to enable transit and mobility to really be optimized. So we went, when I was there, from about 6% modal share, slightly higher than here at 4%. And by the way, each percentage points is a lot of work. And we ended up around 12%. And it's a reflection, not so much of the modal share per se, but it's a reflection of use and that it works for people in their lives. So frequency, the pursuit of frequency, speed, and reliability and comfort throughout the different parts and dynamics of the community is, to me, very important. So they've done a really good job on that. I think the base here is really, really nice, that the MAX system in particular is just an excellent base to go from. So they've done well on the policy and the pursuit of that policy, like London and neither of us in Vancouver, BC, or here, are close to say what some of the European cities doing. Like Stockholm, and I was over there last year, was 44% modal share.
Yeah.
London 42. So, and then cycling kicks in, like we saw in Copenhagen, and so I am so optimistic that the steps that are being taken in the contemplations here, and overlaying technology with plan, book, pay, smart cards, all these things add up to to leverage this urban growth boundary, which most places don't have. That is a precious gift to really densify. So I think the conditions are really exciting here, frankly.
So TriMet obviously depends on payroll tax revenue as well as passenger fare to pay the bills. But how much of your optimism going forward is contingent on continued state support, other additional revenue sources perhaps, and federal support?
Well, it's foundational. We look at in fact, I personally like diversity of revenue streams rather than all or one.
Hmm.
I've seen many of my CEO or general manager counterparts of the country who are solely on sales tax. You'll live or die by that sword. So I learned from being in a private sector, big multinational company many years ago, diversity of revenue streams is actually really helpful. It helps absorb the drop when they happen, and it's inevitable at some points. So you don't fall as far typically. So I think there is a role for the state. There's absolutely a role for the user. I think it's going to be very interesting, this federal election that is upon us, and the role of the reappropriation of transit at the federal level. That's due up, I think, in the next year or two, around the billions literally being allocated to help fund transit authorities just like ourselves. Examples being Division Transit for just under about $90 million from the FTA. They've been great partners for us, really great. We just got a grant for them for $1.2 million for looking at pushing mobility options with some joint ventures. So you start to look at the red line for, it's already been tweeted out that we're going to proceed on that for just approximately $100 million. So that's a really important part, because transit is expensive by its nature. And so therefore, most revenue streams individually can't carry it. So I think I support diversity of it.
Yeah, TriMet and the City of Portland's Transportation Bureau have worked over the last year on some of these projects that we talked about earlier to give buses a leg up in traffic. The so-called Rose Lane project from Commissioner Chloe Daly and TriMet again. How much of that project is going to continue regardless of whatever happens with the transportation bond in November?
Yeah, well, I think unrelated to the bond, to your question, I think the bigger question for us is we very much support those initiatives. The speeding of the system up, more capacity and frequency, not just speeding up the system as well, to minimize pass ups, and so people can start building their lives around those kind of choices, right? They can get where they want for less time, less impact. And so I think the bigger challenge for us is going to be, as we continue to invest in those Rose Lanes, not only in the city of Portland, but throughout the region, hopefully, it's going to be triggered by our financial capacity, which we're still, frankly, in some fairly uncharted waters, Andrew. So, and so that's the fragile revenue line up top that we're watching closely. So we're still trying to earn our way back to putting the full service back in before we leap too forward with a heavy expansion again. But I think we have to, looking past a COVID or a short-term economy, the Rose Lane initiatives are very important to the success of this region, and very supportive. Continue to invest in it. I just can't tell you the speed of that investment right now.
So again, we're talking in late September. TriMet received, as did other public transit systems, federal money through the CARES Act stimulus fund earlier during the pandemic. Is there a second wave that you're aware of that's been in discussion? Does TriMet need more money from the feds to kind of hoof it forward, just from a purely operational perspective?
Well, firstly, I really want to thank the federal government for helping us out. This agency and this region benefited about $185 million. That bought us some time. It did not solve the problem, but it bought us some time. It allowed us, frankly, to invest in our driver operator safety panels, for example. That's $2.8 million. So it's things that are COVID related to shore up, so we in fact could continue to be an essential service. Cleaning, all those types of things that we've talked about. But that money at some point will run out. There are discussions around another stimulus, but the surety of that, frankly, is pretty low right now. And I think a lot of it will be predicated on an election and who wins, what the timing of that is. So I think part of my strategy here is to stretch the dollars out as much as we can. That's what the taxpayer would expect. And so I'm trying to preserve cash to, if another stimulus comes, we will need it, no question. The only question is when. Most of the our $185 million has been committed to at the end of this month, and so some of those will go through in the remainder of this year, etc. But there's not another bank account we're going to be able to tap into, so we will need another stimulus at some point. But I think other transit agencies, in fact, just before I came on this call, as a compliment to our board of directors and to our finance team, we were just reaffirmed by one of the bond rating agencies again, Kroll, as a AAA, which in today's economic environment is, I'm just so proud to be working for an agency that has a AAA bond rating, which really helps you have credibility with the finance markets as we bond going forward. So we've got a lot of unknowns still ahead of us, and yes, supplemental funding for the federal level will be very important down the road.
Well, it sure feels after everything that's happened this year in 2020, closing a few MAX stations downtown is positively quaint when you look at it.
Yeah, who would have thought? So, when you talk about those stations closing, if we look at this region, so TriMet has 2-car trains. Most other transit agencies have 4, 6, 8, even longer ones than that. And so part of this is because we have short Portland blocks, right? So where the cars can't hang over to the intersection. So, they serve their purpose. But you're right. This is all part of speeding up where people have alternatives to go to other places, and to helping people who work that $15 an hour job in one part of the region and has a long day to get home because maybe they work downtown or such. And so part of it is speeding up for them. And there's an equity side to this for me. And so that's why I was pushing this so hard against a lot of resistance, of course. So I think it's in the region's best interest to be competitive time-wise. Very important. And at some point, I think long term, we may actually have to go underground here. But that's for another day and a lot of money. But that's part of taking the steps of capacity and speed.
Right.
Getting through the central business district.
And there's some money in that bond we talked about to study a tunnel or to speed up that study. So see how
Correct.
It all shakes out. Well, Doug, thank you so much for taking time to talk, and stay safe out there.
And same to you, Andrew. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Beat Check with you, Oregonian. If you like the show, please leave us a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. It helps others find the show. And subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts. Until next time.